Have you ever been looking for an amazing queer cam performer? Well, I got you covered. You should check out TS Cami. Her super hot content is on Chatterbait, Twitter, Xhamster, and Reddit. Support this rad trans femme babe. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Performers Pod. I'm Chelsea Poe, and today I'm here with cam performer and indie content creator Eevee Frost. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. Welcome.
Hi, Chelsea.
It's so nice to finally talk to you. I feel like we've followed each other on social media for like my entire porn career.
Yeah.
I don't know how that really happened, but I feel like there's just your honesty around camming and on social media and just kind of the reality of it is really why I wanted to have you on. And you know, there's not very many people whose main income is camming. So I just feel like that's a very unique position in the sex industry that we're in.
Yeah, for sure. Yours too, right?
Yeah, camming's been my main thing since literally I've been like 20.
Wow.
So
yeah, that's
yeah, it's
about
been
when
a
I
decade.
started. It's such a trip to have your entire 20s documented online.
It's very strange to have people like send you photos and be like, is that you from 10 years ago? And be like, yeah, it is.
Yeah, and then you like look at how you did your makeup back then and it's like, oh no.
Yeah, it's really crazy to have all of that if you're 20s because I was living on a college campus when I started camming. You did too?
Mm-hmm.
So you were like the one or two, like there's probably one other cam girl you knew at most probably at the time.
I don't even think so because I went to school up in Maine. So
okay.
It was a really small college and I think I was the only one. And then everybody found out and they were like, what the fuck's wrong with you? And I was like, well, this is what it is. So
was there like at least some sort of community like where I went to school in Michigan.
Yeah.
And we had like people come in and show porn occasionally.
Really?
Like we had Jiz Lee come in once, and that's how I got into porn because I was just a cam girl on campus. And I was like, oh, I should probably go to this.
What was this for a class or?
So I went to like the community college, but all my friends were going to the main university. It's called Grand Valley State. It's outside of Grand Rapids. And I failed a bunch of classes because I wasn't really caring about school. So I was still living on a college campus, but I wasn't going there, but I was going to like all like the queer things and like all like the LGBT and trans groups. Mm-hmm. So through that, they're like, oh yeah, Jiz Lee's showing an orgy here on like Wednesday.
Oh my God.
So I was like, oh, okay, I should go do this. And then
really, I went to the wrong school.
Yeah, were you in like a big city? Were you in Portland or a smaller?
No, it was Farmington. So I mean, you can tell by the name.
Yeah, I'm like
rural. And yeah, so I was the only one. I think the only really the closest, like the most queer adjacent thing that I could think of is like there was a furry group, but that was it, you know?
Yeah. So are you from New England originally, or did you just move up there for school?
I'm from New Jersey and I did go up there to school. You're from Oakland too, right? You lived there.
Yeah, I lived there for about like 6 years, something like that. I'm in the city now.
Yeah. You're in New York City or?
Oh no, San Francisco.
Oh, that city.
Yeah, the Bay Area version of the city.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I lived there and I lived in Burlington, Vermont for a while. And then I finished school in Pennsylvania. So I've been all around and I'm back in New Jersey now. Yeah.
So you've been camming through all of that?
Yes.
Wow. So your cam viewers have all the different backgrounds. They're like, oh, where are you now?
Yeah. That's another interesting part of it too, is like I can look back at like all my pirated content and I'm like, oh yeah, I lived there. And it's like a trip down memory lane before like I do the DMCA thing.
It's so weird to think about that stuff because like, again, I usually don't talk to people who've been doing camming as long as me. So to have that shared experience is really unique.
Yeah, I completely agree.
So what got you into camming? Like, what was your first cam session like?
Oh my God, that's funny. So
do you have the date for it? Do you
I
know
don't
the
have the
date?
date. I wish I did. I know like the general month and year it was. But I was on Tumblr back when Tumblr was a
Oh,
thing. Yeah, and I
yeah.
saw Ash Marie all over Tumblr, and I was like, wow. And her picture was so beautiful. And I was like, that looks like so much fun. I bet I could do that. I couldn't do that. And I started on Live Jasmine, I think.
Oh
And
my God, are you kidding me? Me too.
really
Yeah, that was my first campsite, and it was, for me, it was bad. I don't know
horrible.
about you.
Horrible. Yeah. They like docked off money. Like they took, it was like the total penal system. Like if you didn't have HD photos, they like took away money from you.
Hmm.
And oh my God, yeah, it was bad. And I had like DSL internet because I was up in Maine. So yeah, just embarrassing. And then the next site that I was on was Streammate. So I'd
Okay.
only been on Live Jasmine like once or twice. So I don't really count that. So yeah, Streammate was like December 2019, I want to say. And no, was it? That can't be. No, because then that would have only been 3 years. Hang on a second. Now I gotta go back. I was in my undergrad. I graduated high school 2012. So it was like 2013. Yeah. December 2013. Sorry. I started on Streamy, and that was also terrible. Have you ever been on there?
Oh, that's one of my main sites right now. I'm on a studio right now, which
Okay.
takes care of a lot of stuff. And basically, to go on the studio, I had to jack up my rates. So I'm like the highest rate girl on the site now,
Oh,
but it's fine. It's like $15 a minute right now.
oh, good. So
Yeah,
even if someone like cancels after a minute, you still got like $15.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It was for me,
it's
it was
hard.
different. I because that was back in like 2013. So I'm sure a lot's changed. It's almost 10 years
Yeah.
ago now. I just constantly got people that were like, shit on the bed. Like, I'll give you $5
Yeah.
if you shit all over your bed.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Oh my God. That's like a never ending thing at Cam. These ridiculous requests for like, I want you to piss all over yourself, but I only have $2. It's
I know.
like, oh,
Yeah, it's like you got to make it worth it, at least for me to get a site ban. Because it's like, first of all, if I piss all over myself, I'm going to get banned from the site. Secondly, someone's going to record that and send it to my family. So it's like, at least give me like $10,000 to do something like that. They never do.
so like, what was your first few camp sessions like when I
Amazing.
started, I had that amazing feeling of like, oh my God, I just made $20 appear in my bedroom.
Yes. So when I finally got to Chatterbait, which was in like January 2014, that would have been, that's when I finally had like that aha moment of, oh, I think I could do this. I still wasn't doing super well. I only had like, a couple hundred people in my room, but I made like $80 and I was like, I can buy groceries this week. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's like such a big deal when you first start making real money and you're like, oh my God. I remember like the first like check I got, I think it was like for like $1,100 from just camming. I'm just like, oh my
Wow.
God, this is crazy,
And they
you
sent
know?
you a check. Was this before? Yeah, because they didn't have direct deposit always.
Yeah, yeah. Where I'd have to go to my bank like once every few weeks and be like, here's the check.
Yeah. Oh my God. That must have been nerve-wracking.
Yeah. Well, no one knew in Michigan, like, first off, no one like knew trans people existed at that time, which was kind of good in a way. So like no one would read you as trans, and also like no one realized there was any amount of sex work going on. So like there was just no one would even suspect a thing. So it was
Yeah.
pretty great.
Because there's that. And then there's also like the worry. I remember being really afraid of my bank finding out what I was doing. Um, was that a worry for you too?
I think it's more now.
Yeah.
Early on, I think I was still very much in college party mode, where it was like, okay, I'm gonna cam during the week and then I can go out and like party on the weekend.
Yep.
And then like literally like it felt like a 9 to 5 job to have to literally just like do the whole weekend thing until I moved out to California and really started taking porn more seriously.
Yeah. And now you do all kinds of cool stuff. I see what you post on Twitter and your
Oh,
beautiful face.
thanks.
Oh,
Thanks. I really appreciate it. Most of it's from pre-pandemic. I think I've been on only like three sets since the pandemic. But for you, like what has the pandemic shifted a lot of your camming? Like has it improved it a lot?
No, I mean, in the early state or early years of the pandemic, it did, but I feel like things have gotten a lot harder now. And I keep hearing that from a lot of people, just that it's getting harder and harder to make money in this industry. How has it been for you?
It's for a while it was down, but honestly, since switching to the new StreamMate thing, and I think I've really streamlined what I can do camming wise, where it's just like, okay, I know I can be there for an hour and a half at a time and
Yeah.
actually pretend to give a shit. Where after that, it's just like, I don't know. I feel like I'm in front of a screen doing nothing after a while. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I used to cam almost 8 hours a day sometimes when I first
Oh my
started.
God.
Yeah, I would go on twice a day in college, 5 times a week. And
Oh
now
my
I
God.
can barely do
Girl.
3 hours now. I'm like, I gotta go. I can't do this.
Did you ever work in any like in-person cam studios where has it always been your bedroom essentially?
It's always been my bedroom. I don't think I would get along. I don't even know where you would find that. I bet they have them like in the Bay, but everywhere
Not
I've
anymore. There
oh
used to
no.
be.
Was it
Yeah.
what was that place called? The Armory?
Yeah, I worked there for 9 months. It's a fucking lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I ended up moving out to the Bay. I started doing Kink Live. And then they're like, oh, you can cam at the Armory and make more money if you cam here. So I
Wow.
was like going into the city from Oakland, I think like 4 or 5 times a week for a porn job, which was really, really weird.
Yeah. Well, is it weird or is it really fucking cool? That's like such a Bay Area thing, I feel like.
I think it's both because like you're always around that.
Yeah.
Also, I was like 21, 22 when I was doing that, and they had free alcohol in the building, and like,
Yeah, that'll do it.
and then they own the bar next door, and you got to drink for half off there.
I remember that. Yeah.
So yeah, so it's messy. I mean, were you ever involved in the kink life world or not so much?
No, I think I went to the Armory a couple times, like right before it closed down. At least I had been to the bar next door, but yeah, I wasn't really in the kink live community. It's just always been camming. And then like I used to do the expos and stuff. I think the last one I did was AVN in oh God, 2020, was it? Yeah, that was right
Yeah,
before
so you
the
went to the
pandemic.
last one.
Yeah.
Were you also at the Chatterbait booth for that?
Yes.
Oh, I don't know how we didn't actually meet in person then. That's so
Yeah.
random.
I was only there for like 2 days, so maybe that's why.
Yeah, I kind of did the same thing where I'm like, I want to limit myself this year. I just felt like it was gonna be too intense. COVID wasn't even on my mind at all at that point.
It wasn't on anyone's mind. Yeah, I felt like a nut job because I was like, hey, have you guys heard about that virus? And they were like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, it's so weird that to experience the industry right before everything changed so much, and just that was really the last true like mass gathering. I guess there has been like the XBiz thing that happened, but I don't know, it just feels so different from that space. Like that whole venue was so crowded and it was like just packed of people, and now we just don't have things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like the motivation to go to those things has just really shifted. Like I just have no desire to go anymore.
Yeah. I feel like just looking at these industry conventions that there's COVID outbreaks where it's like, even if I'm nominated for something this year, I'm like, I don't think it's really worth it to possibly get COVID. Or even with that, it's like, I'm literally just going to do one thing and not do anything else.
Yeah.
Especially with just how much trade happens there and how many people are always shooting. And even on
Right.
a normal year, I feel like there's a flu going around or something. So
Yeah, they call it the AVN flu or something like that. Yeah, everyone would I got really sick too last year, or not last year, the last AVN. And I thought it was COVID, but it wasn't. It was just whatever everyone
oh,
had.
you got that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there were at least like two people in my hotel room who got it. So
Oh, fun.
yeah. So yeah, what are kind of your feelings now about camming, because obviously we both started when I started in 2011, you started in 2013, right?
Yeah.
When it was still pretty uncommon, where you didn't run into another cam girl, you probably didn't know another cam girl. Like now that it's kind of more mainstream and there's kind of everyone has tried camming, it feels like.
Yeah.
How does that feel? Because for me, it feels like in one way it's great that people can now point to all these people they know that do sex work, but another way it feels very strange because it feels like there's so much invisibility, and then it was almost like a light switch that it's a more mainstream thing.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about it because like I agree with you. And OnlyFans too, it's like that has really destigmatized a lot of what we do. At the same time, I feel like when it comes to my personal and professional and romantic relationships, there is still a lot of, it's like people accept it as something that people do, but there is still a lot of stigma that
Mm-hmm.
needs to be worked through. And then also, I'm not really sure how to say this, but I feel like I feel like hmm there's a lot of people who have just gotten into it to try it without really, because we don't really talk about the repercussions of it very
Yeah.
much. And that's something that has really concerned me because I remember when I was younger, I didn't really think too much about the repercussions. And on the one
Mm-hmm.
hand, I'm so thankful for this job, for everything it's given me. Like I wouldn't have been able to move out to California or get out of like my abusive relationships that I was in, or be able to live on my own. So it's gotten me a lot of independence. And then on the other hand, all of this terrible stuff has happened to me. And it's hard to have a nuanced conversation with that to people without them being like, oh my God, this whole trafficking, this needs to
Yeah.
be shut down, so it's hard.
I also feel like on the flip side, like the outside view of all these cam companies are any girl who wins a trophy is all like, this is my family, all this stuff. And for me, I never identified with that, where I'm like, I don't think any of these campsites really care about any of these models. Like, I've never
Oh,
felt a sense of community on Chatterbait. Even though I'm wearing the free mini vids shit they gave me, I'm not like, it's a family, you know?
yeah, and
Like, I just
ManyVids is
don't
like one of the
understand
worst
that.
offenders in terms of how much it's sold out its models.
See, like, there's a few things I really like about mini vids where you can just send your Venmo to people and they don't give a fuck.
Oh,
Like
that's
you
nice.
can send your Venmo and Cash App, and MiniVid's view is they're like, well, you need to make money, so it's whatever you want to do. That's
Mhm.
like the only good thing I've been cool with them about. Also, that they pay out 80% on camming is pretty cool. But
Nice. I don't love any site that does like ranking or competition stuff.
same,
That's like, because that's toxic to me. And I think it goes into like what you're talking about, where these sites don't really care about you. I feel like any dynamic where sites are pitting people against each other is really bad because that already exists so much. I also really resonate with there not being that much community. I feel like when I was doing my best in camming, my early 20s was when people were the meanest to me.
oh really?
Yeah, like when people really wanted to see me fall, because that's when this is like old lore at this point, but anyone who's like been around the chatterbait community for a while knows that there were a group of people that were actively doxing and harassing me and stalking me. And there's lots of that in camming, whether it's from like viewers or other performers. That's just kind of a occupational hazard that I wasn't really prepared for, and there's not a lot of support for that. And
For
there's
sure.
there's some models who I've found will prey on that and use that as a way to kind of like bolster their own career, which is really shitty.
For real. I feel I've gone through multiple like death threats from camming. I'm sure
Yeah.
you had too. And it's just like most of these sites won't even tell you where these people are located. So you
No.
can't even judge it as is a safety thing. Like Cam 4 dropped the ball super hard for me. I think it was maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And basically I had to use my Twitter to finally get some lawyer to reach out to them to get some sort of response. And their initial response was, oh, we banned them, it's fine. And it's just like, you really can't say that. Where when I worked at King, down the hallway from where you would cam was the person who had all the information. And they would be like, no, this person's in Finland. We're going to ban their IP. We're going to handle that. Where I feel like so many campsites just don't really care about the models and don't want to put the effort into, you know, dealing with what we're dealing with, and kind of just write it off as, oh, well, it's just cam girl drama, you know?
Yeah. And especially like, I mean, a lot of harassment of models happens off of the site too. Like some of my worst doxers and harassers like are on poll. They're on like 4chan and stuff, you know, and that's
Yeah,
serious. And that's something I've had a hard time getting people who aren't in this industry to understand, like to be posted on 4chan and to have your, you know, your personal information and everything posted on there like that, and to have people actively wishing you harm and to have no recourse, and for that to happen for years and years, that like damages you. And
for sure.
it's the people's response is like, well, then why'd you do it? Like, this is your fault. You know, you tried to pick an easy job with easy money, and, you know, now you have to deal with the consequences. So
Yeah, it's such bullshit. And I just feel like it doesn't really respect the amount of emotional energy that goes into camming. And I feel like that's what people don't understand, where obviously we're not in the same physical danger in our daily lives as a street sex worker. But I think emotionally, putting yourself through these cam sessions, you know, 5 days a week, indefinitely, essentially, and, you know, a really bad cam day can really affect your mental health, even if you're in a good place. Just
yeah.
because I feel like it's so draining, because you have people constantly lying to you and making up things and being like, oh yeah, I'm gonna pay in a second, and then just disappearing, you know? And like, it can really start to drain you down. How do you deal with
I have a therapist who
that? Yeah, same.
very lucky that I have a therapist who understands the intricacies of my job, because yeah, like you're saying, it is different from street-based sex work, right? It's not that threats aren't there and that our lives aren't necessarily in danger. It's just it's different.
Mhm.
So it can be, again, just really hard to understand the intersection in terms of like where it's similar to in-person forms of sex work and also where it's like completely different. So my therapist really helps me with that. And I work a lot less now. I don't try to push myself. If things are bad, then I just take a break and just disconnect. And
Mhm.
I don't try as hard as I used to.
I feel that. Since I moved in with my partner right before the pandemic, so I feel like when you don't live with a partner, at least I did, I was like, well, I'm gonna hit the goal no matter what. You know, where I'm like, I'm just gonna stay on indefinitely until I make this goal for the day. And it's just like, I think having someone else there where it's like, okay, I need to be kind of responsible as a person and not just sit on cam all day if, you know, it's a bad day. Or I feel like before I would definitely go into those habits. Did you kind of have that more before?
Oh my God, yeah. It's emotional self-harm, and you don't really think of it
Hmm.
that way because it's like, well, again, this should be an easy job. Like, I'm a content creator. People would be lucky to have this job. And you kind of gaslight yourself into tolerating a lot of unhealthy work habits and
Hmm.
not nice people. So I've had to really get better about my own personal boundaries around that and just be like, no, this isn't okay. And just because I get to work from home and I get to be on a webcam, it doesn't mean that there aren't things that I need to be cognizant of and protect myself from.
That's super real. I mean, I feel like these conversations literally just never happen because I feel like we never talk to other camp performers about this shit. I
And
mean,
we
honestly, just
should.
hearing you say that, that's like so important. I never think of it that way, but you're right. Like, it is a version of self-harm when you're having a bad day, you feel like shit, and you're just like, okay, I need to make $60 more before I get off, even if it takes 2-3 hours.
Yeah, no, it's not okay. And then it's like people feed off of your emotions when you're in that state too.
Yeah,
And they don't want to help you. They just want to take you down a couple notches because they think it's funny. And it's like you can't let yourself get there. I used to be
for
really
sure.
bad about that. And I used to like I still argue with people and I'm like, fuck you and fuck him too and fuck all you people. But very good at using my finger and just banning people when they start getting sassy with me, and just logging off, touching grass.
It's so real. It's so important. I feel like for me working at the Armory just changed the way I cammed. Because before I was so much like, I want as many people in this room as possible. That's how you make money. Because that's kind of how these sites sell it to you. Where Kink Live was like, if someone's not in your room, they shouldn't be in your room if they're not paying you. So
Yeah.
that changed my whole perspective. So now, like when I cam, if I have, 20 people in the room, that's fine. As long as it's like people who are actively either about to pay or I'm figuring out if they're going to pay. And I try to do a really revolving door where I'm like, I don't want 50 people just masturbating right now, because I feel like that just makes me be like, oh my God, this sucks.
Yeah, like if people really think they're doing you a favor by sitting there and staring at you. And I noticed lately there's a lot of days when it's like the first hour and a half I'm just sitting there in silence, and
Yeah.
that's becoming something I'm having to really look at. And I have started PMing people in my room, and I'm like, hey, if you're not going to tip, can you talk? And if they don't answer me, I'm like, okay, bye.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I think I'm more direct than most camels, where I'm always just like, oh, what can I do for you today? And then if they don't answer,
Oh,
I'm always just like, okay, you can leave. Have a good day though.
that's interesting. See, I've never heard of other cam girls doing that, and that's a really unique perspective. I feel like you were really lucky to have that Kink Live experience where you learn that it's more important to have people who are actually contributing something worthwhile to your room than to just, as opposed to just having people in there for the sake of having them in there.
It really took a while to figure that out for me because, on Chatterbait, when you're doing it, it's almost like half of their target is, oh, you need to get a lot of people in your room. Then you'll be on the
Yes.
front page and you'll make more money. So like
Yeah.
I did entire like sex shows with my exes and stuff on there where it's like, oh, we're number one, but we made like $40,
Yeah.
Where when I first switched to Kink Live, they're like, oh yeah, you might only have 4 people in your room. And I was just like, well, how is their money then?
Right. Yeah, they really, and Chatterbait's great in terms of like the traffic that you can get, and you can funnel that traffic into other places. That's how I get traffic into like my OnlyFans or other endeavors that I'm doing. So that part of it is really helpful. But yeah, I'm noticing there's always been this huge push to have a lot of people in your room. And I think that's kind of what the whole site has devolved into now, where it's like, if you look on the homepage, it's just like all clickbait stuff. And it's different from like when I first started, where people watched cam girls because they liked a certain kind of like personality. And I hate phrasing it like this because it makes it sound like I'm like judging people, and I'm not, but it's just different. It's like the interaction is not there anymore. Like the landscape of what camming is has shifted, and I've
For
really had
sure.
to sit with, am I compatible with this new landscape? And I don't know.
Yeah, I think this has been my best year camming, but at the same time, it's just changed a lot because I feel like I needed to make it change for me, where it's just like,
Yeah. How did you change it?
I think in part just raising my rates and just trying to be really direct with people.
Yeah.
And like, whenever people are like, what are you into? I'm like, directness. Because I feel like everyone on campsites are just so wishy-washy, where they're like, oh, I'm really into this, but I have $2 and shit, where I'm just like almost viewing it almost like an analytics thing now, where I'm like, if you've been to my room 3 times, you're not going to pay again. So
Yeah.
I'm really just trying to kind of view it like that and really believe in the system
Yeah.
and doing it for like the last 10 years, because I feel like both of us kind of know who's going to pay and who's going to not pay after the first, 5 minutes in our room.
Yeah, it's true. Maybe I should switch sites too. That's been another thing on my mind. Like maybe I just shouldn't be on Chatterbait anymore. Maybe I should try other things. It's like I've tried Sext Panther too, and that doesn't really work for me. I have a problem where people just don't really want to talk to me.
Yeah, I think it's also different being a trans woman because like I can only come once a day. So like I'm limited to that. So it like kind of shifts it because like for cis women or people with vaginas, like you can come multiple times. So for me, once I come,
And
I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, my show's basically over, because I'm like, if someone else comes back and they're like, this is what I want.
Right. Oh, I didn't even think of it like that. So
Yeah,
it's almost like too, then it makes sense. It has like the price would have to be higher because it's a one and done kind of thing.
for sure. I mean, I can go twice a day, but I don't want to put my
Yeah.
genitals through that.
Yeah. It gets harder and harder. Like I just for me as someone who has a vagina, like doing it once and then trying to do it a second time after that, it's like we're pushing it. We're inflicting critical damage here.
Yeah, I think for me, just like trying out different campsites, like so during the pandemic, this is a taboo thing that might get me in trouble on whatever site I was using it for. There was this thing called Split where you could cam on 4 sites at once. It doesn't work anymore though, but
Fuckers.
I tried that early in the pandemic. I think it was just like some techies made it and they're like, oh, let's see if it works. And it
Yeah.
kind of did, but you could also set it so there was like 5 presets of what you would type. So it would be like, oh, welcome to my room. How are you? Is there anything I can do for you? All like the basic things you say.
Hey, it's
So,
direct, right?
yeah, so you would just like do the one of like the 5 keys, and then it would send it to whatever campsite and would show all the campsites combined into one app. So it would be users from every different site.
Wow.
It was really great when it
Why'd they get
lasted.
rid of it?
I don't think there was funding for it because they were trying to get camgirls to pay $100 after the trial, and there's no
No.
camgirl who's gonna give a company $100 just to use their site.
Yeah, oh my God. Have you ever heard of Cam Models Protection?
No, I would love to though.
Yeah, they do DMCA service stuff and they definitely price gouge. They're very good, but I for the first few months I did their premium package because I had so much pirated content and
Yeah.
that was $500 a month. A month
Oh
for
my, how?
I don't know. I don't
Who
know.
was running that scam?
They're good at their jobs, but they also know who their clientele is. So they're overcharging for sure. But now I do their $269 a month one, and it's still pretty good. But yeah, it sucks. I feel like all these services for cam girls, you have to pay extra for it, and it's not fair.
Yeah, I think, yeah, once I got involved with Trouble Films, I think I got most of my stuff taken down just because we have someone to do that. So it really helped, but
You got in with all the good people.
it worked out way better than I thought it would.
I've just been fending for myself out here. I feel like a feral animal compared to you. Just
I
like
feel very
surrounded.
lucky that it all worked out. It's, I don't know. Yeah, I was working at the armory, and it was kind of bad because they're running it like a Silicon Valley company essentially. So you had all the perks, and they're like, "Don't leave work. Just stay here. We have beds for you to sleep."
Ah,
And they were right next to the cam room, so like it was for all the cam girls. So
and
it
there's free
was
alcohol. God, yeah.
free
Woo.
alcohol. There's also a private chef there. There's a gym there.
Wow.
It was kind of an issue in a way. Like in one way, that's great and all, but also having all that stuff with sex everywhere and people hooking up and work hooking up, it's was kind of a lot.
Yeah, I
But
bet. Especially as a
yeah.
young adult, it's a
Oh
pretty
yeah, when I was 20, it was amazing though. Like 21, you're like, wait, I don't have to go out to a bar and deal with like
Yeah,
not porn people essentially and just be
yeah,
able to hook up with whoever.
yeah, and they'll get it. There's that mutual understanding. It's a double-edged, well, no, there's good and bad to it, but
Yeah, I'm happy it's not a thing anymore.
yeah.
But yeah, so I was kind of immediately after my bad experiences with King. Oh, they also assume every trans woman's a dom. So
Oh,
that
that's
was
good.
a pretty big shock when I started working there,
Yeah.
where they're like, "Oh, Chelsea, you're a dom, right?" And I'm like, "Not at all." And they're like, "Oh, well, never mind about all that work then."
Wow.
So that's how I got involved in Trouble Films. Is Courtney and I worked together a few times before. So after that, I'm like, okay, I have all this idea of stuff to do. And obviously, Kink, they still won't shoot submissive trans women at all.
Why?
They have this idea that no one wants to see it, which is not true. So
Yeah,
I don't
because
know.
you've done so well for yourself. And I think I've always only seen you in like submissive content.
Yeah, that's all I do. for the
Yeah.
most part, and like random mainstream porn occasionally, but not so much anymore. But yeah, so I think a lot with just like the problem with kink is they were bringing in so many models for their kink live thing with maybe promises or just being like, oh, you can further your career here, and there really not being that opportunities for a lot of people. And I think they were also really bringing in people, they were really recruiting, so they'd bring in like 3 of every type of person. So when I started, there were 3 trans women, there were 3 blonde girls they brought in at the same time, 3 brunette girls they brought in at the same time. So it was very much like, oh, some of these aren't going to work out, some of them will, sort of thing.
Yeah, it's like a very clear, you can clearly see that they're trying to cover all their bases. And
Yep.
it's weird to see you're literally a quota in
Yeah.
that way. Yeah, and to be given opportunities, but only really narrow ones that fit in certain boxes. Yeah, but then not also that's like how this industry is, and
Hmm.
that sucks about this industry, and it's also something I'm very against. And I'm like, fuck that! I don't want to be put in a box.
Yeah. I feel like so much about this industry is like overcoming all those expectations you're put into almost.
Yeah, yeah, and you've done such a good job of that.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, seriously, I love your content. Um,
I really love your content. You just are that you're a cam girl who's continuously making cool stuff and continuously camming. It's just so cool to me. I think I've had probably 45 people on this podcast. And I haven't had a full-time cam girl. So just having these conversations are so important because I don't think I've never heard a cam girl conversation like this before, you know?
yeah, I'm hopeful that more will start to happen, at least like as people start to process their experiences and everything that they've been through with this job, because these conversations need to happen, not just so that we can advocate for ourselves better, but also so that we can protect people who are newer to this job, you
Mhm,
know? I
for
think that,
sure.
yeah.
So when you first started camming, what really made you realize that you wanted to do this long term, or did it just kind of naturally happen like that?
It just kind of naturally happened, and I've tried other jobs and I have other jobs, but it's like every time I would take time away from it, I would kind of get this itch.
Yeah.
So I always gravitated back towards it. So I don't know what that's about. I don't know if it really necessarily means that camming is a calling for me, but it's just something that is.
I feel like there's definitely that fun of the hustle after you've been away from it for a minute.
Yeah, it's like a slot machine effect almost. I don't
Oh
know.
my God, yeah. I feel like I never have fun in Vegas because I'm like, I could make this much on cam, right?
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
I get to come. It's great.
I know. I'm going on your Twitter now and I'm just looking at all of your beautiful here. It's so I just love it.
Oh, thanks.
It's
Yeah,
you.
I'm really excited to get back on set. It's been a while. It's been pretty chaotic from the pandemic. Has your schedule been pretty fucked up since the pandemic,
Yeah,
or?
I get on at different times, but I've never done like in person. I mean, I've camped with other people and stuff, but
Mhm.
I've never really done like professional style stuff. So I'm always really in awe of people who, especially like group scenes with like 4 or 5 people. That's a lot. I don't think people
Yeah.
understand that, performing with that many people in a sexual way, like that is a very serious skill and an art to be able to do that and to make something that's like jerk off worthy. So yeah.
Yeah, I love doing group sex scenes. Like it's something I did really early in my career. I kind of don't know how it happened, where it was just like a lot of that stuff. And I think there's a really good community left now in the Bay Area
Hmm.
where I feel like when were you here? Did you see kind of the whole giant like queer porn wave here? Were you here for that?
I was there. I'm gonna get my years fucked up again. It would have been from 2016 until 2020. I was there. So
Okay, so you probably caught some of it still.
a little bit, but it took me a while to get out of my shell in the Bay Area because that was my last abusive relationship that I was in. And then I
Mhm.
broke up with that guy and moved to Oakland. And then that was kind of like my spiritual and emotional awakening. So I caught some of, the Bay Area queerness, but I don't think I got to experience the full extent of it like you do. And like all my friends back there's now currently in. So I'm
Yeah, we
jealous.
had like a multiple year overlap where I'm like, oh my God, I wish I knew you when we were both
No.
in Oakland.
Aw. Maybe
Yeah,
one day.
yeah,
I,
right.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I just feel like there was so much creativity going on. And for a while, there were people moving to Oakland and SF to do porn, which now is so surreal because there's such a small community here.
Yeah, because they all go
But
to LA.
yeah, or Vegas. I think it's
Yeah.
mostly Vegas now. So I just think it's such a different scene here now where it's just way more chill and people really don't have the kind of dream of becoming a porn star, which I feel like when I first came here, so many people here were directly moving to make it in porn,
Yeah.
which doesn't exist here now because we only have 2 studios left. We only have Crash Pad, which is in SF, and then Trouble Films in Oakland. So I think it's just really different now. I think it's kind of more chill in a way, especially with like all the group scenes we've been able to do have
Mhm.
been all with our BDSM collective. That's just four or five femmes, and we just do it all on our own terms. So
Wow. So you found your community.
yeah, it's going really good. Yeah,
Oh,
rent's awful here as always, but
yeah.
other than that, I think it's been really good. I think we found a little good scene here where everyone's on the same page, which I think is so hard sometimes in sex work.
Yeah, I've had that too. Even in the best case scenarios, I feel like something happens. You can't always anticipate everything, even with like a lot of conversations. Sometimes things just come up, and because of the nature of the work, it's really easy for something triggering to happen, and you're
For sure.
naked with somebody that you don't necessarily know super well. And it's, a business relationship, but it's also a friendship and it's also a sexual
Yeah,
relationship. So it's hard to
it,
do that. I
I think
have
it
some.
really is.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, go on.
I was just gonna say I have a couple people that I'm still really good friends with that I've cammed with. Yeah, and we've had to have a lot of debriefing conversations that are still ongoing even after.
Did you ever have a lot of success camming with other people? Because I never, it was so hit or miss for me all the time.
It was hit or miss for me too. When I was younger, I did really well with that stuff. But again, it was like I also pushed myself, and I also associated with people that were big boundary pushers, and
Hmm.
they were like, you two have to do it this way. And you
Uh,
have to do this really hardcore stuff, and you have to force yourself to do X, Y, and Z. And it's like, yeah, I did really well when we did that, but also it killed me inside after, and I'm not friends with those people anymore.
yeah,
So,
I feel like that's just such a hard thing in porn where there's these like, whether it's a director or the head of a company who's like, all these sex acts have to happen. I feel like it doesn't give any place for performers to have an off day or not feel up to something.
yeah, or to even just like negotiate chemistry between two
Hmm.
people on their own terms. That is so important to do.
Yeah, I think I've had a few I had a former director and performer on here who actually talked about that, where they're like, I can't direct anymore because I can't put people in that position, which I can totally understand because even if it's not the directors who's like, this has to be in, they're getting pressured by the studio to say, we need all of this stuff in this movie or we can't release it, because then it won't appeal. I just feel like it's such a hard thing.
It is really hard. Has that happened to you a lot? Were you put in those situations a lot?
Um, a few with some of the mainstream porn I did, and so I did all my mainstream porn in New England, weirdly enough.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was like all in like I shot a movie on Martha's Vineyard, which was really weird. And then like Cape Cod, and then like New England, I mean New Hampshire. Yeah, really weird. The places you would never assume porn was happening, right?
Very mainstream, I guess. It's like when I think of like where the most mainstream people would come from, it would be like, yeah, Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we were shooting porn when like the Obamas were there and shit. It was so weird.
That's amazing.
Yeah, there was like a whole lawsuit about it because they were shooting at someone's Airbnb. And then it was like exposed by the Boston Globe and the homeowner tried to sue. I think they lost, but then they won the second case because they had like their paintings in the background of the porn. So they got like a copyright thing because of that. So
So
the porn doesn't
stupid.
exist anymore, but like I'm sure it's on a tube site somewhere.
Oh God, yeah, that's a whole other conversation, like Airbnb and sex work. But yeah, I remember I did a road trip with a best friend that I had in my early 20s when I was really active in camming.
Mhm.
And we would we would go to Airbnbs on the road trip and I would cam there. And we were always worried about that, like somebody recognizing the Airbnb.
Mm,
So I did a lot. I remember to like take the pictures down and like do everything to make it look, not recognizable. But it's so dumb. It's just a job. Like, who cares? Like, someone's gonna have sex in your Airbnb anyway.
right?
What's the difference? Like, there's a camera there. Who cares?
That's literally why people stay places is to have sex in different places.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't do Airbnb anymore. I
I
do
don't either.
hotels. Yeah, just like a
Same. Yeah. I feel like a hotel, like, I feel like no employee there cares enough to be like, I saw this in porn. I need to report to somebody.
no, because it's like
Yeah,
they don't get paid enough to give a shit, first of all.
exactly.
And
So I've had such a great time chatting with you. I have two questions left for you.
okay.
So you've obviously been in camming for a decade now. What do
Mhm.
you want to accomplish that you haven't so far in your career, whether it's camming or making clips or OnlyFans? What's kind of keeping you going?
What's keeping me going? What do I want to accomplish? I don't know what's keeping me going. um, I guess what's keeping me going is I need to finish school. And this job really works well with school. I would really like, when I'm hearing you talk about community and, being in with a group of people to make content with, and people who are like queer and not normies. I need that. I would love that. I have to find that. I think that's my scene, and I don't think it's in New Jersey. I think that um, this job has changed me for the better in a lot of ways,
Mhm,
because I understand what it means to be on the fringe of society in a way that I wouldn't if I didn't do this job.
mhm.
And I'm really drawn to people who are like that. And I have a kinship now with people like that. And it's kind of given me like a template of like, who are the kind of friends that I want, and where do I want to surround myself, or who do I want to surround myself with, if that makes sense.
Totally. I
Yeah.
also feel like that it got you out of such bad situations that you were in before.
Oh,
I
yeah.
feel like that's such a I feel like the sex work, so many of our narratives and kind of our stories kind of get just like looked over like that. Where I feel like I look to a lot of times to like sports and stuff to be like, what would the narrative be with this, where people are like, they'll really idealize someone getting out of their situation in life through sports or whatever. And I feel like sex work should be given the same thing because you got out of some bad situations from sex work. And
Yeah.
I know where I would be in life right now would be drastically different if it wasn't for sex work.
I don't know if I'd be alive right now, honestly,
Mhm,
if it weren't for this job. As much as like have a lot of criticisms of it, and sometimes I think back of all the experiences I've been through and I feel like, fuck, I'm
yeah.
permanently broken. It's
Uh-huh.
also it's just it saved me in so many ways. It's complicated, it's
For sure.
like anything in life. You can't say it's good or bad. It's both. And yeah, I do think that people should be celebrated for figuring out a way to pick themselves up and get themselves to safety. And we're not given credit for that.
Yeah. I just really, if nothing else, if this podcast just can provide some of those narratives, I just think it's so important because even at like AVN and XBiz, it's not talked about like that, about really the stories behind how these people got to this point in their life. It's just like, oh, wow, they're the best at this. So we gave
Yeah.
them an award.
Well, because it's about sex appeal, and it's like if you humanize us too much, then people can't maintain their boners, and that's another thing that I really try to push back on is
Mhm.
I want people to see me as a full person. I want people to look at me and be like, wow, that's really cool that she did that. And I wonder what other people's stories are. I want people to get curious about sex workers and to be in awe of our stories. And I think the
Yeah.
only way that we're going to do that is by talking about it and asking questions that matter. I mean, it's also
Mhm.
like questions like, what's like your favorite fetish, or like what's
What's
your
your
favorite
favorite
sex position?
yeah,
Yeah.
position?
Like those are fun too. And I'm not knocking those, but it's like, I don't know. I think there's so much more to us than what our favorite sex position is.
Yeah, honestly, with this whole podcast, I just assumed it was mostly in the other performers or people interested to get into the industry, but it's really not been. It's been porn fans, which has
Oh,
been really
good.
surprising because I'm like, most of the time we don't get to hear an hour of your favorite porn stars speaking or like actually telling about who they are.
Yeah.
Where I think it's so important just to have at least one platform to give that because we usually aren't given anything like that.
No. Well, thanks for having this podcast and for giving us an outlet to talk about this
Yeah,
stuff. And
this
that
has
makes me
been,
so happy that porn fans listen to this. Like,
yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, it makes me really stoked. And also you're the last podcast of season 2, so it's even better.
Ooh,
So
closing it
yeah,
out.
I know I've done 45 podcasts in the last like year, so I need a few months off.
Is that your artwork, the camming artwork that's like liar? Remember
Oh
that one?
no, my partner got that for me. Oh, you've seen it, I'm assuming.
You sent it to me, the one where it says
Oh
liar.
yeah, yeah.
I love that
Yeah,
one.
yeah. About men lying on campsites and needing to be executed by a guillotine. You know, just casual. I have it right behind where I cam, so it really helps. So I have one more question. If you could magically change one thing in porn or camming or kind of online sex work, if you could change anything magically overnight, you wake up tomorrow, it's totally different. What would it be?
I wish we had more access to safety resources. Like if someone's bothering us because of what we
Hmm.
do, I wish that there was some kind of lawyer association that understood the different intricacies of the umbrella of sex work and took it seriously. I wish that campsites did more. I would on their platforms and off their platforms too. I just feel like protecting us and keeping us safe is something that really needs to change, because a lot of us, regardless of which job we do, we're just different degrees of safe, but none of us are totally safe, and that
For
sucks, and
sure.
that's not fair. Yeah.
Yeah. I think if campsites had that themselves, like I feel like they're starting to become, I mean, I'm sure you've seen it since you started. Like when we started, the idea of performer mental health would have literally been laughed at by these companies.
Oh my God, yeah.
Where
Because
now at least they're like, oh, there's this site you can reach out to. Oh, we're trying to do this thing. So it's like the illusion of trying to do something.
yeah, Chatterbait finally implemented this thing where it's like if you ban someone once and they tried it, because I used to have this issue where people would just make a new account.
Yeah, I
So now
definitely
it's
remember
like if
that.
you ban that username, all the IP just gets banned. So you don't have to keep banning people, because that was awful.
I
Um,
remember that dealing with that shit where it was just like people would just create like 8 accounts in a row and it's just like, don't you have a fucking life to do things other than just annoy me?
no, they don't. So that's helpful, but yeah, there needs to be more.
Yeah, I think I totally agree. Like, it's kind of amazing these sites don't have like a legal or safety department.
You know, do
'Cause
that.
it's not
Step
like they're
up,
not making
guys.
money. They're getting
Yeah.
50 to 60% of whatever we're making. So,
Yeah, who cares if we die, right? There's someone else to replace us. That's extreme, but it's true.
oh, damn. Damn, that's a hot take. And I think that's a pretty good way to end. I mean, like, as much as it is like a thing that is a positive thing, I think that is kind of how these campsites do view us, that we are very disposable. And
Yeah.
even like the girls who are winning the awards and shit, they're gonna be like, oh, well, we'll have another one in a few years.
Yeah, someone who's younger, and that's a whole conversation for
Yeah.
another.
Well, where can everyone find you on social media and everything?
Let's see. Let me pull that up. 'Cause my public Twitter is private right now. It's not coming unprivate.
I always want to retweet your cam shows, but then I'm like, okay, I understand.
I have a public facing Twitter. My other public Twitter got banned because I said Johnson and Johnson gets the guillotine, so I had to make.
Oh damn! I'm hoping you did not get the Johnson & Johnson shot.
I didn't. I'm a Pfizer baddie.
Oh, same. Yeah.
Where is my Twitter account? Okay, so my public facing Twitter is Petite Prole. And I'm on TikTok too.
Oh damn, you're doing that?
Yeah, I really like TikTok, and I'll type it here. It's store brand hoe, but I had to spell hoe differently because TikTok doesn't like bad words, so it's HEAUX.
Yeah, the French spelling.
And then my chatterbait is EEEVEE. So I'm a different person depending on the platform. It's not easy.
Well, thank you so much. I had so much fun chatting with you. I feel like this is such an informative conversation on camming that I haven't heard anywhere else. So I think that's a really good thing.
Thanks, Chelsea. I hope we get to hang out one day. That'd be super
Same. Cool. Hopefully some future convention after the whole pandemic's open or something.
Yeah. After we all went through trauma treatment for what
we've
been through.
Right? Well, okay. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
you